Steve Gamache here with another Chef Knives to Go quick look product review, and what we have on the table right now is the Kato VG10 Suminagashi or Damascus Wa Japanese handled Gyuto 240mm knife. This line of knives is made by Hiroshi Kato. There are a couple different Kato blacksmiths on the Chef Knives to Go site currently. The core steel is VG10 full stainless steel, and their heat treat on this, their implementation is about 61 to 62 Rockwell. So they take it a little bit harder than some, and that should increase edge retention for this implementation of the core steel. The construction is a multi-layered cladding on either side of that VG10. So the Suminagashi refers to this paper, or it's a paper, I believe it's a layered paper Japanese art style. And so it refers to this layered effect where the cladding is ground down here. But in general, it just refers to this layering effect of the cladding. So some people would just say Damascus. It's just another way to approach kind of really this blade road effect. So anyway, they do this by multiple materials in the cladding, nickel and stainless, and they etch it, acid etch it, and that's what gives us this unique and highly striking patterned effect on the blade. So it's a very eye-catching blade. The weight on this knife is about 5.9 ounces or 166 grams, and the dimensions and heights and stuff on these are going to vary a little bit from knife to knife since they're handmade. This particular one is 246 millimeters on the edge, or 9.7 inches, and the overall length about 400 millimeters. The spine thickness, these are pretty thin overall, so this one coming out of the handle is about 1.85, 1.9 millimeters, and then it pretty much just maintains that same thickness all the way through, maybe even gains just a touch right here before we hit the grind at the tip. This is not an especially skinny tip. They don't have a lot of distal taper into the tip. So the trade-off is a little bit of performance for a more robust, beefier tip. The blade height is 52.1 millimeters, so plenty of height. And the handle is just kind of the good basic oval rosewood, stabilized wood, black paca wood, which is a stabilized wood ferrule. And pretty standard on a lot of lines of knives. It's an ambidextrous design. It's smooth fit and finish. Then a pretty nice handle install here. It's pretty tight. Sealed up pretty well, though I always like to seal up the handle on these Wa knives where the tang enters the front of the handle with, I usually use 2-part clear epoxy, JB Clear Weld, but you can use beeswax, marine epoxy, but whatever you want, but sealing that up is a good idea. I do that on all my Wa knives. The circumference of the handle is a standard 76 millimeters or 3 inches, right where the ferrule meets the main part of the handle. And then this is pretty much tailor-made. You'll probably notice a little bit of similarities to the Masakage line of knives in this style. So you've got this curved area for your finger for a pinch grip. This is called the choil, the back of the blade, into the curve, into the neck, into the handle. And you've got a little bit of a back sweep to the heel a la Masakage. So the balance point on this is about right there, which for me is in front of my pinch grip. So what that does is gives you some weight forward balance bias on this and gives you a little bit of cutting power, kind of some chopping power, and it just helps the knife do a little bit of the work for you. But still, yeah, 5.9 ounces, 6 ounces, that's light for a 240 of this size. So again, it's a thin blade overall. Let's take a close-up look at it. So here's this effect. You've got definitely a dramatic effect on the blade. You can see the layering and where the grind starts. Really cool effect. I like the left side of the blade, which is this is the left side of the blade as you're holding the knife in a cutting position. And the reason I like that is you've got the hand-chiseled kanji. So there's some hand-chiseled kanji, as you can see. It at the right light, it pops. Otherwise, it kind of disappears into that cladding. But when you hit the right angle on the light, it's a neat effect, and it's a nice touch on this knife. You can see the core steel showing at the edge there. Again, these are thin, and if I can catch it right, you can see the cladding is actually not, a lot of knives, the cladding comes over the top of the spine. This one does not, so you can actually see the layering effect. It's kind of like a cutaway view, so it's neat. You can see the core steel and the layers surrounding that. It's a pretty neat effect. And then these are pretty thin right at the edge. This is, again, a thin overall knife. And so you can see how thin it gets at the edge. And we're going to cover our profile in just a second. So fit and finish. The spine, it's got a little bit of relief on it, but if I were going to use this one, I'd probably take a little bit of sandpaper to those first couple inches and just clean it up just a little bit more. It'll probably take you 5 minutes at the most. The curve on the choil into the neck is a little bit more relieved, and that's pretty comfortable right out of the box. But for my taste, the spine could use a little bit more cleanup. Here is the profile on this 240. And it's really similar to the 210, except it's just a little more stretched out, so kind of a gentle curve throughout. A little bit of a flat area at the heel and about the back 2-3 inches. And then a gentle curve the rest of the way. You can see the tip is fairly high in the overall lines of the knife, and so that's going to let me rock this pretty high. So this particular tip actually has an upsweep at the very, very last couple of millimeters as far as the edge goes. So I can get this baby way up there. Not all the knives are going to be the same, and that's what this particular one does. But real smooth on a rocker. This would be nice for glide push-pull cuts. Probably not too much of a chopper. So I'd say kind of general purpose, but maybe with a slant towards rocking. Again, every blade's going to be just a little bit different. So here you have an all stainless. If you know somebody or you like a real dramatic effect and you want to kind of make a statement, but you want something that's thin. Overall, a little bit of robustness to the tip. A nice implementation of VG10. Really cool looking knife, light, thin. This is the Kato VG10 Suminagashi wa, or Japanese handled Gyuto 240mm knife.